double check our comments. All right. All right, cool. All right, so this morning we have Justin Thomas Eggen, award-winning poet, Marine combat veteran, deployed to Afghanistan and participated in battles in Marja and Sangin in 2010, 2011. Author of Outside the Wire, Volume 1 and 2, The Art of the Warrior Poet, Art of Warrior Poetry, From Now Until Death I Shall, The Sun Rises in Helmand, War and Select Poems. So, Justin, good morning. I'm doing well. So, first question, why poetry in 3 words? You don't have to use just 3 words. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. Um, okay, yeah. Hmm. For me, it works. I like it, man. So, tell me about yourself. You enlisted in the Marine Corps 2013, 2008, in 2008, yeah, because you're in Afghanistan 10 and 11, makes sense. Yeah, hey, Justin, hold on. Having a problem hearing you. Hold on. Let me see. No, I don't think it's your computer. I think it's mine. Hold on. Sorry for those of you watching, and currently I think it's just Richard. Hold on. Okay, aggregate device. Let's see. Can we hear now? Let me see. Let me text him. Let's see. So Justin, can you say something so they can see? They can hear you.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Keep rambling on about it.
Shit. Hold on. We're learning. We're learning as we go.
We adapt.
All right, Justin, can we get you say something?
Can you hear me now? Kind of like a little melody there.
Let's see if they can hear something. Okay, so
basically, let me just start back. I mean, I was a combat replacement.
Hold on.
We're in Marja.
I'm the worst. You're my second interview. Take it easy. Be gentle. Hold on.
I mean, I don't know how to do these things either, dude. Trust me, I don't. I have no idea. I'm as new as you are.
All right. Okay. So we're back. They hear us. Okay. Cool. Hey, so I'll start over. I'll just start right now. Yeah, and then when we make the video, I'll just clean it up and launch it there. I'm sorry, Richard. All right, Richard's the co-founder and CEO of CreatiVets. All right, so Justin, good morning. More technical difficulties, but all right, so this is the Ready Room with CreatiVets, hosted by Zachary Burgart and Tab Justin Eggen. Justin Eggen enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2008, went to Afghanistan, Marja, sang in 2010, 2011, and was a warrior poet. And he's an author of, published author of Outside the Wire, Volume 1 and 2, The Art of Warrior Poetry, From Now Until Death I Shall, The Sun Rises in Helmand, and War and Select Poems. So, Justin, it's not going to catch you off guard this time, but your answer was fantastic. What is poetry to you in 4 words?
It works for me.
It works for me. All right. Expand upon that a little bit. You had it perfect before. I want to capture it.
It works for me. I don't know. I think that, like I said, I guess I'll just sum it up a little bit about what I said earlier, is that, like, our generation is very alien and they're very unaware of, like literature, really, like real old classical literature and, you know, contemporary literature as well, and especially poetry. Nobody reads a lot of books these days, really. It's really hard for people to even just pick up a book. You know, they're always on their ebooks, or half the time a lot of people don't even know that they can read a book on their phone. People can't read more than like 140 characters, right? So, like, it's hard for people to read more than like a tweet. So I wanted to get into like an area of writing that nobody was really touching upon in our generation. Nobody was really working in, and that was like a space that was devoid of anything. So I wanted to fill that space with my writing, and I had this like weird sense of poetry that I knew I could write, because I wrote it in like middle school, high school, and a little bit really, and I knew I could do it, and I knew that some of it was good back then, but, you know, I figured I could just translate whatever happened in Afghanistan into poetry, and maybe it would work for me, and maybe it could be kind of like artistic, and maybe people would like it, and it just kind of happened in that way, and so it works for me.
Yeah. No, man, that's great. It works for me. So, okay, so tell me, you were telling it earlier, and let's get it so everyone can hear it. So 2008, Mother's Day, you surprise your mom and say, going to boot camp.
I'm out, yeah. I left, and well, see what happened was I was working at the airport, and George Bush came into town, and I saw these Marines, like the power went out in the building, and the security force Marines are watching HMX-1 like snapped into place, and like they had this like crazy discipline about them, and I was like, I want to go learn how to do that, you know? And I went and talked to them, and they were like, yeah, go join the Marine Corps. So I was like, I basically like left like 3 months later, and on Mother's Day, I went to boot camp and up in Paris Island, and that was pretty terrible the whole time, but it was fun. And then, yeah, I got to the fleet, and then basically immediately upon entering the fleet, about like a month into the fleet, I broke my shoulder. I didn't really break it. We went and played ultimate frisbee, and this like older staff sergeant like tackled me, but he said like in the beginning like no tackling. But then he tackled me, and like my shoulder broke, and I broke my other collarbone 3 times throughout my life, and I knew the feeling. And they were like, "Oh, you broke your shoulder?" I was like, "Yeah, my shoulder is, it's gone." So they were like, "All right." And then I basically became a turd in the battalion. I got NJP'd, and I had to wait for his shoulder surgery, and then that was like a year-long wait, and that whole thing was just really, I don't know. I got ridiculed the whole time for the being, you know what I mean? Like the whole year by like all the higher ups and stuff. That was I guess got chastised basically, and then, yeah, then I became a combat replacement like a little bit after my surgery, like 2 months after my surgery. I had to like force the doc to like send me on deployment. I was like, I got to get out of here, dude. I got to go. Like send me now. Like all my boys are over there. Like I can't wait around. I can't get like med step from the Marine Corps. Like I got to go. He's like, all right. So he signed off on the paperwork. I went to I landed in Dwyer, went to Marja, and spent the next like 3 months there, and then we finally came back to Dwyer, flew home, and spent like the next year working up, and then we went to Sangin, and that was like a whole different story. That was like the Wild West, man. That was not anything like Marja was. I mean, Marja was like saying from the people that said the invasion was nuts or whatever, it was like a 2-week long ordeal or whatever. You know, I guess I don't really know like you can't really compare, man. I don't know. It's like apples and oranges, man.
Yeah. So hey, okay, so were you writing poetry before the Marine Corps?
Yeah, I wrote poetry like a little bit in like middle school, a little bit, and like a little bit in high school, just mainly because like Tupac, man. My mom bought me The Rose That Grew from Concrete like immediately as soon as I came out, and I was like in 6th grade or something like that. Yeah. And she bought it for me, and I read it, and I loved it, so I like started to write poetry, because of that. Yeah. Just because I knew that Tupac was writing poetry, and I was like, maybe I could do that, and I started to like kind of like find my own, or like try to find my own voice, I guess, in that. But it didn't really kind of like come out, I guess, until after the military, until now, like my voice is truly like my own now, I guess.
Yeah, I want to touch on that later because there's different styles in each of your book, and I think that is really wild and incredible. So just I'm trying to track things. How old were you when you joined the Marine Corps?
I was 19.
Okay, so you're 19, working at the airport, joined the Marine Corps. And 2 years later, you're in Marja.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said
Sangin. My 21st birthday in Marja.
You did what?
It's been my 21st birthday in Marja.
Yeah, I spent my 21st birthday on a rooftop in Fallujah.
Nice, dude.
Yeah, so
Did they give you like a little? Did somebody give you like the MRE like bread with like a match in it for your birthday?
No.
No.
No, I was on a rooftop.
Did for me. They're like, "Here, bro, happy birthday." I was like, "Oh man, that's pretty nice."
I was on a rooftop, and I remember going like, looking down and seeing like past midnight, and I go, "It's my birthday. I'm 21." And I think it was my buddy Cameron Cruz next to me. He was like, "Happy birthday." That was it.
That's awesome, though, man. At least I don't think I've met a few people that had their 21st birthday over there, man. But most people I ever met, they're like, "Oh, bro, I partied my 21st birthday. It was crazy." And I'm like, "That's cool, man. Like, that's cool."
Yeah. Hey, so awesome. So you wrote poetry in high school and before the Marine Corps, trying to follow like a Tupac style, trying to explore some things. Did you write? Yeah, my buddy Richard. Richard, the co-founder of CreatiVets, just wrote that he turned 21 in Fallujah too.
Yes.
But it was there because we were there at the same time. We find out later. Hey, so were you writing poetry on the Marja pump, or was it the Sangin pump that was the Wild West that kind of brought it out?
It was more of, I think that it was the Sangin one, man. I think that when I got to Sangin, dude, like I ran into one of my good friends I went to engineer school with, and I was ripping out his platoon, and he was like, "Good fucking luck." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Good luck." And I was like, "What?" What he's like, "I had a Molotov cocktail thrown at me, dude." And I was like, "All right." And I was, he kind of like Before that, though, we talked to some 3-5 guys that came to California when we were doing our EMV thing out in California, our little workup out there, and they like didn't hold back like what happened, with 3-5, and like they were there, man, and they basically they sat us down in like a room, and they were like, this is where you're going, this is what's going to happen, and this is what happened to us, and this is exactly where like what's going to happen. So we had like that whole deployment, man, we were like working, and we were like a workhorse. We didn't stop. We just worked. We didn't really have a lot of leisure time to do anything, man. It was very. I took like minimal pictures on that deployment, dude. The memories from there are like just what I have in my books. You know what I mean? Like I don't like that deployment sucked, dude. You know, it was just nonstop. We didn't really get to do. I mean, my first deployment still sucked, but it was still, at least we got to, hang out at Dwyer and like do like, just little things, and to hang out or whatever. But my second one was just like nose to the ground, dude. You're in it, and that's it. You're not gonna come home unless you like until the day that you're ready to go.
Right. So writing. I
didn't really write like over there too because I guess I wrote like in my I have like 2 or 3 little Write in the Rain thick books that I have written a lot of things in, but they're more or less like events that happened on the day and things that are happening for like later on in the night that I can actually like write like a report about, you know what I'm saying? Like on the BFT or stuff like that. So it's not, a lot of it's not like, none of it's like really poetry. I mean, there may be like 1 or 2, but that's maybe it. But other than that, it didn't really hit me until like early 2016 where I was like, or like late 2016 where I was like, I got to do this. I have to write, because I wrote a poem in 2014 about a dream that I had. And that was like the first one that was like, I really sat down and wrote out a dream that I truly, like, it was a pretty intense dream I had. So I wrote it out in like a poem form. And I sent it to a few of my good friends that were over and sang it and Marja with me and stuff. And they were like, dude, you got to get this stuff published. And then it wasn't for another 2 or 3 years that I really thought about getting in that realm of publishing my work and actually sitting down and putting it on paper and like thoroughly doing it.
Okay, so I got your books right here. I got Outside the Wire, and I have Art of Warrior Poetry.
Nice.
So, okay, so you were writing the poetry when you came back?
Yeah.
Okay. I was under the impression that a lot of this poetry in here was written from your Write in the Rain, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So those of you unfamiliar, the Art of Warrior Poetry.
Like this stuff.
Right. Yeah, what's written in the, there you go.
Okay, so basically with this is I had the idea, right, that I wanted to write a bunch of my poems in a notebook.
Yeah.
And I wanted to draw them out, and I wanted to have that. And then what I was going to do is I was going to take those notebooks and I was just going to scan them, like how I did. Because, I mean, to be honest with you, this is the same format as like Kurt Cobain has a book that's like this.
Yep.
Tupac, the Rose That Grew from Concrete, is styled just like this, where his journal entries are written in, and then the regular poem is typed out on the other side. So what I did is I basically, I imitated that style with my own book, in my own style. So, but no, I wrote all these. Basically, how I write my poetry, man, is I put myself in like in isolation, man. I just like put myself in a mental, physical like isolation, and I like allow myself, like I meditate basically to allow myself to get to that point where I can like mentally be back where I know those memories are at, where I know where they're at in my mind, and I know I can trek to those memories in certain times, and I can find them, and then I can sit there and be inside those memories, and I can find the words, and I can like dust in a chalkboard, you know what I mean? I can find them, and I can just put them up and be like, okay, now it's time to leave this memory and move on, because it's a very emotional thing, dude. I mean, it's not fun, you know what I mean? Like it's a way to process it, and that's what it's become over time. And at first it was more of like, it was very like this, you know, my first and second book was more
Sure.
like this, and now it's become like a, now that I've gotten through like that first wall,
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, and I can go back to the other side of the wall now that it's broken, and I can travel back and forth, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so your writing has changed from when you were there, right? To when you're there, when you're coming back now and you're trying to revisit those memories and track those things, right?
Like basically, I didn't I from the moment that I left North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about Afghanistan or Sangin or Marja ever again. Like I literally I never thought about it. I didn't talk
Yeah.
about it to anybody.
Sure.
I didn't bring it up. Like I didn't say that I was a vet. You know, I mean, my friends knew I was a veteran. I used my GI Bill and I went to school as a veteran, but that was like that was it. Like I didn't. I, you know, I went to the beach and I surfed and I skimboarded. And I completely disassociated because I didn't want to. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be there, right? So that was a big problem to do that. That's a huge. You can't just bottle up and just throw it down there and never think about it. So
Right.
that's where the poetry really stemmed from, was the
Yeah.
fact that I couldn't hold on. I couldn't keep it down any further.
Sure.
And the only way for me to really get it out was to like put it onto something tangible and real, and like put it into like a book, because that's how my mind was like, you have to do this, because you can't just hold on to this forever. You have to keep it and share it with people, and other people have to share this burden with you. Like
Right.
this isn't just for you, so put it out there. So that's why that's basically how I got to the first book, was the fact that I couldn't like suppress those like that, like those traumatic events or those traumatic memories. I couldn't suppress that any longer. I couldn't keep it down anymore. I
Yeah.
was keeping it down for 4 years, you know.
Yep.
So it just like, I don't know, it just kind of morphed into the first poetry book, which is Outside the Wire, you know. Now when I wrote that the first summer, and that, I mean, you can tell, I mean, that whole first book I wrote in 2 months.
Oh,
That's
really?
what I'm saying. That's what I mean. Like it was there, and I was like, I gotta get it out.
Absolutely.
And it just 2 months later, I had a book. And I was
Yeah.
like, holy crap.
No, I've been in those shoes, man. I started writing poetry for the same type of purposes, you know.
Mhm.
And yeah, within just a few weeks, I had like 34, 35 poems. And it's
Right.
it's slowed down drastically over the years, but yeah, that initial push of like finding that outlet and using that outlet, yeah, just poured out like a faucet, you know. Which is, yeah, it's one
Yeah.
of the reasons I got so involved in CreatiVets, is because I want to help others, you know, see things through the creative outlet like that, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's it, because it's truly the best way, man. I mean, you can do whatever you want with like your vices, but I mean, with art and creativity, dude, you can do whatever you want. And the fact that other people will support it because it is unique and it is something different and it is something that appeals, that appeals to people that they didn't even realize that it appealed to them until they saw it, you know.
Right.
And then they're like, wow, I like that, you know. And then it's like, wow, you know, that's what creativity does. It brings people together over something that wasn't, you know.
Right. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. So you said you published, right? So you've got award-winning books, your third and fourth, and your first one topped at opened up on Amazon in the top #1 spot.
Yeah, my latest one, yeah, dude. I don't know, the veteran community like kind of came together, dude, and I just I put it out. I submitted it like last Thursday, and it finally got approved on like Sunday or like Saturday night, and I waited until Monday to like really drop it and push it. And I really, you know, like selfless promoting, dude. I just like throw it out there and just tag
Absolutely.
as many as, you know, just as many whatever. I just send it out there, and hopefully the universe is like, yo, bro, let's do it, you know. And that's what happened, you know. The people came together, man. It's still, and it's a beautiful thing, like you're saying. Once you get that first push, you know, the same thing with like Amazon. Once you get that first push with the book sales, now you're up there. Now the book can stay up there, you know. And now
Right.
that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. It's definitely exciting because this book, I think there was something inside of me, dude, where I needed to write about what's inside this book, and I think that it's been stirring or whatever for like several months, and then finally it came to me, and I was like, and I just, over the course of I think like 2 days, I wrote this book, and it's only 10 poems, but I wrote it in 2 days, 3 days, and I put it together in that span of time. And I think that, and I've sent it off to select people, and they're like, man, this is incredible, you know. So it's just the fact that like I can, like I said, I can go to that spot and I can find it, and I can sit there and I can basically write my poetry in there,
Right.
and I can bring it back out and I can put it together in something like this. And then, I mean, I don't know how stable that's going to be for however long, but I mean, it works for right now. So it works for me.
That's awesome, man. So if self-published, how did you go about that? How did you find out about how to do that? You know, who did you reach out to?
So I made some mistakes along the way.
Okay.
I made some not like very big mistakes, but I definitely made some mistakes along the way. Like I definitely like thought about like, oh, I should be paying somebody to publish my books. And then I talked to somebody who was a real New York editor for like 30 years, and they're like, you should never pay anybody to publish your books. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, you know, this is an older lady that's been around since the 70s, 80s, and 90s and worked through the whole, you know, everything. And she was like, if somebody's going to publish your work, they're going to pay you, they're going to publish it, this, that, and the third. And I was like, okay. So I found this company that would print my books. They wouldn't publish it, right? So I found a printing company that would actually print the books. Well, I started printing the first 2 books from them and like half of the third book. And I realized that like I was paying them like to do something that I could be doing basically. And my 4th, 5th, and my 6th books are all done personally by me, like structured and put together by me. So you can definitely tell a distinct difference between my first 3 and then my other 3. Like I designed and put all my poems and I structured the first 3 books, but I didn't put them together and format them into a paperback or an ebook. That was all done by the printing company, right?
Right.
So I basically learned on my own over trying to do the art of warrior poetry, because I have 2 versions of this. I have a black and white version and I have a color version. And the black and white version I think was done by me, but I really learned how to get on there and really figure it out to where I can do the rest of it. And so now all the other books are all done by me, and I have them at select sizes and different fonts and different colors and stuff like that, because I like to change it up and have, you know, a ton of variations. I mean, all my books, it looks like a rainbow, dude. You know what I mean? It looks like like back there on your wall, like that's all the color scheme. You know, I like to have all the different colors, because if one book appeals to one person and another one appeals to another, then, you know, you're hitting on 2. You know, you're hitting 2 different things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And then so the black and white, you're talking the art of warrior poetry, the black and white with that gold. Okay, the gold on the front. Yeah. Hey, also, I dig how you reached out to the community, and for the cover art, you chose our friend and fellow Marine Corps vet, Ben Cantwell. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
good, man.
So he did
support us.
So he did the front of this, right? And it's so funny because, all right, so here's the story. I sent him a picture of me, right, holding like a broom, like in my old apartment, like without a shirt on, right? And I was like, I'm like, look like an asshole, right? And I sent it to him. I'm like, bro, can you do a cover like this? He's like, I mean, I can. I was like, all right, well, what do you think? I was like, this is kind of the vibe that I want. I wanted it to be like the art of war. Like he comes home from war. You know, that's the whole vibe of this book, is that he comes home from war and he writes poetry about war. Like, you know, the first, it's in 4 sections, and Ben Cantwell really, like, he got that vibe. You know, he got the Marine coming back with the spent shells, you know, like on the cover, and on the back of it, he has, you know, the scroll with all of the poems written with the rifle and the pen, you know, like, so he did a really, really fantastic job all around, man, with that. And if you look on the inside, that inside cover with the samurai sword, dude, with the mags, is just, that's what I wanted to grab. I wanted to grab that, like, samurai like feel to it. Yeah,
I mean, the book is beautifully laid out, and there's like an immediate connection to it with having so for everybody out there, for having you having your pages in the margins and seeing like inside your process, inside your mind, it's so much more impactful than, you know, seeing a serif font. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, man, it's like it's passionate. It's got voice. It's good. I really enjoy it.
Thank you, thank you. I enjoyed writing it, man. I really like. I knew I wanted to do something that was gonna be, I don't know, man. That was gonna have that you start somewhere and it's gonna end somewhere. Like you start off like an adolescence and you go to war and then you
Yeah,
come back
for
and then you
sure.
like champion those feelings. And then how does that look in poetry? You know, how does that look when you do write it out in a journal? You know, how to like I still have them. They're in my truck, dude. I have two, and the covers are inside that book, right? Those little whatever they are, those these little decomposition books or whatever they are.
Yep,
So they're
yep.
inside like the covers of them because I did my own artwork. You know, I drew on them and shit. So I I have them in my truck where I just kept them around with me, dude. I just wrote them. I wrote them every single day, and I just took them. I just did art, and I just wrote them. And then over the course of like, I knew I was gonna do it, so I think I kept them around for like 2 months. I did that, and then after 2 months, I took them and I started scanning them and started typing them out, and it was just like a, oh my god, what a process, dude.
Yeah. What scanner did you use your home scanner for that to scan them
Yeah,
into?
like like basically, I basically I used my home scanner, dude, and just scanned up every single poem, just scanned one file, and then I named out the poem on the
Yeah.
computer, and then I named, and then you know what I mean, then I matched them up with the actual poem inside the written book that I had already written out with the blank pages set up for
Yeah.
the poems. It was like it was a good, but the thing is when you write when I do this, man, it's a whirlwind, right? It happens, and then like 2 days later it's over, and I don't even know how it happened. Like
Sure.
I don't even know how this got done, because it was like my mind is all over the place. I'm doing this, I'm managing like 15 different things while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Things are messed up. I also have to edit it myself because I stopped paying for an editor because it costs a ton of money to pay for an editor. And if I can
Really.
just edit it myself, why not?
For sure.
So, because I paid for an editor for my first book, and she was like, "Why'd you pay me to edit this? It was already edited." And I was like, "What do you mean? I did it." She goes, "Oh, you didn't have anybody else?" I was like, "No." She goes, "Well, then why'd you?" I was like, "Oh, dude, why'd I pay her? Like, I just spent a bunch of money for nothing, basically." So I
For
stopped doing
sure.
that, and then I mean, poetry, you don't really need to edit poetry, you know what I mean? And it doesn't need like commas and all that other nonsense. It's just poetry. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's definitely a whirlwind. Like the From Now Until Death, dude. This one in February,
Yeah.
this one was because the guy that I got this artwork from, he's in Indonesia.
Okay.
He lives in Indonesia, right? And he doesn't really speak a very good English. I mean, he speaks okay English, but it's not really that good. So the translation is really hard. And it was like a 3 day ordeal, bro, where him and I were going back and forth, and I was putting the book together, and then like out of nowhere, like the book was done, and I was like, how? I don't even remember how this got done. Like,
That's awesome.
but I mean, that's the process. So I mean, it works for me. So
So you toured with uh, Leo Jenkins and David Rose with the Verses and Curses. You talk to them about this whirlwind you experienced and see if they experienced that same thing. And then also
not
tell me
dude,
about that tour.
not really, man. Dave is kind of like all over the place, man. His phone is sometimes off and sometimes on. He lives in other countries, he travels a lot, man.
Right.
He's all over the place, so it's hard to. And Leo lives in Mexico, so it's hard to it's definitely hard to stay like connected to these guys, man. It was kind of that whole whirlwind concept was like
Yeah.
how that Verses and Curses tour even got started. Really, like Leo had this idea to get on an RV because he saw that Dave wrote a poetry book and he was writing a poetry book. So they're like, "Yo, let's hop on an RV and do Warrior Poets." And then Dave was like, "Yo, there's this guy named Justin Eggen. He has a book out. Like, let's get him on this bitch." And then like a month or two later, we were like on an RV, dude, like driving down the East Coast, and it was like,
Nice.
how does this even happen? Just a whirlwind. We woke up one day, we talked about it. The next like week, we were all doing it.
That's all. How long were you guys gone? How many cities did you hit?
I think I flew to DC, met them up in DC. We did this like book and bar. It was like a bar in Washington D.C. that has a library like book thing in the back.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
went down to the back and we did like a book reading back there. Like the very first, like right when we did it, and then we drove up to like Connecticut, parked, and took a train or something back to like New York City or something like that.
Right.
and then we did a reading in New York City the next night at Emmett O'Looney's and like right off Broadway, and then we hopped back in the RV that night, slept in that night, which is hilarious. Like one of the guys slept in the wheel well, like the wheel well up in the front seat, like, and that's like it's like if you talk to any of these guys, dude, about this this tour, ask them about the wheel well, right? They'll probably just die laughing.
Noted.
So the one guy just slept up there, and the whole night he was like, "This fucking wheel well." I mean, all night in this RV, dude, it was insane. But then we drove up to New Hampshire. We did Battlegrounds Coffee in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And then we came down, did the Marine Corps Museum.
Right.
We did the Marine Corps Museum, which was really cool. But it was really cool, man. But they did it after the Marine Corps Museum closed. So everybody like left the museum, and then we were like reading poetry. But I mean, it was so cool, though,
Yeah.
But and then we went down to the oldest gentleman's like club in Atlanta. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like been around since like 1955 or something like that. It was like a hole in the wall. It was amazing. And we read poetry there, and we drove all the way down to Florida and like Miami, and read at this brewery in Miami. And then that was the last stop.
That was it.
Yeah.
A whirlwind.
Whirlwind, dude. And we woke up, and I was back home, and I was like, what the hell just happened? My kid was born like a month later. I was like, what happened?
So you've done all this while working full time, yeah?
I go to school. Well, yeah, I was working full time before, yeah, and then I started going back to school full time fall of 2019. So I started in August of 2019. I started going back to school full time at Florida Atlantic University undergrad. So that was cool. But before that, I was working full time. Yeah, man, I worked like a landscaping job for like full time. And before the landscaping job, I worked at a veteran cemetery. I've had so many jobs, dude.
Well, it's good.
That's why I think the poetry works. Is I've had so many, like I've had like I counted it out like 3 or 4 months ago, and I had like 31 jobs from the time I was like 14 until now.
I'm the same way. I don't think I've been out of work for like a week since the day I was like 13 years old, detasseling corn in Iowa.
Right. I was a bag boy at Publix, dude, when I was 14. My mom was like, "Oh, you're 14. You're gonna go work at Publix."
There you go.
I was like, "All right." Whatever.
So.
Yeah, man.
People can find you on your website, JTE Collection or Collective?
It's at jtecollection.com.
Right. So it's scrolling on the bottom, and they also have your Instagram, which is Justin Thomas Eggen written out, right?
Yep.
Eggen, Eggen.
Yeah, Eggen, but it's all right.
Eggen.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That's all right. I mean, it's those things, man. My whole life, people said Egan, and it's like I don't want to. It's like, what are you gonna say? You know what I mean? Like my dad was always like, "Do you buy eggs or do you buy eggs?" And I was like, "You buy eggs." He goes, "It's fucking egg," and I was like, "All right, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that to people, but here I am telling you. I don't know."
I apologize. My name gets scrapped all the time with Burgart, so.
I'm sure, dude.
But yeah, in the same boat, like I hardly ever correct anybody. I usually say, "Yeah, it's close enough."
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, all right, at least you didn't go Egon,
Right. So after starting school last August, then you put out 2 more books.
Yeah.
How many more do you have on the burner right now?
I'm always working on like 5, man.
Really?
Always working. Yeah, I got these like little short stories, man, about these 2 guys, like these veteran guys, like kind of like a like an old school detective like short story series, man, but they're like these like salty veterans, they got like wounded in Afghanistan, they came across a bunch of like cool stuff, some cool stuff. Now they're like kind of like contracted like private investigators for like the government and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like a stupid, thing, like a graphic novel type of deal. And then I got like a real like 3-part like saga, like novel, like historical fiction novel that I'm doing that's takes place from like 1725 to like 1799 or something like that. And then that one's pretty serious. That one's hard to write, man. And then I got my actual like memoir that I want to write about like Afghanistan and everything. And that one's definitely hard to write too,
For sure.
And then I have Outside the Wire Volume 3 that I'm working on like always. I don't know when I'm going to put that one out, but I want to put it out. And when I do put it out, I'm going to put all 3 of the books together and just give it to everybody for like the same price as one book. So But I don't know what I'm doing now. And I mean, like I said, I got like 4 or 5 projects always going.
Yeah.
My mind's always doing something. But those are like the things I've been working on for like the last 3 or 4 years that I just haven't really got to complete.
So how do you know what poetry or what poem goes with what poetry book you're writing at the time?
So the poetry books are basically installments of, they're not, I don't write my so it's hard to, I don't write my poetry singularly, like by itself. I don't write, like, when I started writing this book, the first poem I wrote was like, the very first poem.
Really?
And then I was like, yeah, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna write a book. And then I finished it, and then that was it. And it was the same thing with War and Select Poems. Is my buddy, he goes, hey man, do you ever wonder about your rifle?
Yeah.
He goes, you ever wonder about your rifle you use in combat? And I was like, of course, man, all the time. He goes, why don't you write a poem about that? And I go, that's a good idea, man. So I did. So I wrote a poem about it, and now it's Where Are You Now?
So, yeah, I can't wait to read it.
And that's my newest book, and I just wrote a book, you know what I mean? I was like, you know what, man, this is a great idea. Like, why not revisit that, and then why not try to go back, and because I haven't written a good, not a good one, but I'm saying I haven't written a war book in a while, you know what I mean? Since The Sun Rises in Helmand, and
right.
I wrote this I think I put this out in, I don't even know when I put this one out, like last summer or something like that, or something, or last fall or something. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna revisit that, and then he sent me the text, and it kind of sparked me, and then I just sit myself there, and then I just 3 days later I had a book, I don't know.
Yeah. So at the beginning,
kind of how the poetry works.
Okay, I'm following. So in the beginning you mentioned no one's really doing poetry anymore. So who are the poets that you look back on past Tupac that you've drawn inspiration from or find their work compelling?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Siegfried Sassoon.
Okay.
Alan Seeger.
Okay.
Man, there's so many, man. There's truly, I mean, you can look back and really say anything. I mean, Langston Hughes, man, you know what I mean? Charles Bukowski's a big one, dude. He writes amazing poetry.
Okay.
Dude, you can always, everybody wants to say Shakespeare, but that's a given, man. In high school, when you think about poetry, I think about Shakespeare,
Sure.
But yeah, man, I really dig a lot the Great War poetry, man. I really dig World War I poetry. Right. That's like my shiz, dude. Like I like that a lot. I like reading that. My great grandpa was in World War I, man, and he was like, I don't know, like 3/4 Native American or something like that, dude. So like he fought, from I think like 1917, 1918, whatever. Like the last year, whatever, the Americans were over there, but he was over there, man, and he fought, and he has, I have photos of him and stuff, like saying next, like big, like artillery pieces and like shells and stuff, like in Europe, yeah, dude, in like France, and I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool, I really, so that's like in my history, so I want to know about that, I don't really have a lot of my grandpa's brothers were in World War II, but after that, none of my family was really in the military, my uncle was in the Navy, and like the late 70s, and
none of my family was in the military. My uncle was in the Navy.
Yeah, let's put that off to the side. He's cool, man, but I mean, he doesn't really die. And what is he gonna say? He sat on a boat for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a defensive force. I don't know.
Listen, I'm not sitting on a boat for 4 years. That's for somebody else to do.
I've got a lot of boats on.
There's definitely people out there that are gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to be out in the ocean like that, dude.
For sure. We were off the coast of Burma back in would have been 2007, I believe, 2007, and it was right after Cyclone Narita hit, and so we're out there like, I don't know, we must have been 10, 11 nautical miles at sea, just cutting squares, waiting to see if they want to call for, help, humanitarian aid, or whatever it was, and so we got off these Zodiacs. we got the Zodiacs off the big deck, and went for a little Zodiac day where we just linked up out in the ocean, away from the big deck, and just went swimming and diving off the Zodiacs, just kind of get a break, you know. But there's coconuts.
Diving is fun. Diving is fun. I love diving. See, once you get into water and you get off the boats and stuff and you get into water, that's when it's fun.
Yeah. No, you're right, man.
Boats is not fun.
No, it's not. There are these 2 coconuts floating by us, 11 nautical miles at sea, and there were like 3 crabs on top. And I'm just like, man, that is tough. That is perseverance.
That's a hard
I learned a
life
lot
right
from those 3 crabs.
It just brings everything. It just brings everything back to you. You're like, man, I could be that crab right now.
And it's like, that crab is literally fighting their whole world.
Yeah, dude. That's too funny.
Yeah.
My shit frozen or what?
I think it is.
Look at my face. Look at that face. It's hilarious.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I think we lost your video, but I still got your audio. So do you want to tell us one more time where they can find you? The jtecollection.com and your Instagram, Justin Thomas Eggen Eggen?
Yeah, and you can go on Amazon and just search just my name, Justin Eggen, or you can just go and Google and just search Justin Eggen,
or
and everything just populates right there.
Or warrior poetry.
Yeah, just you can literally just probably search war poetry on Amazon and my stuff might come up. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, this technical difficulties cutting us short, but it was a pleasure talking to you. We should link up again in a few years and see, what you're doing, how you're doing, and how many books you have out, how many more awards you have.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
All right. Hey, Justin, pleasure, man. Have a good one.
Yes, it was good talking to you.
Bye.